a report that initiated from Fox News, our sister station here, but is also now being reported by other outlets, that two US military jets, F-15 tactical fighters, are escorting a commercial passenger jet, which was on its way to New York's JFK airport. Now, we understand that the aircraft had been escorted by two Canadian jets until the US military jets picked up the Escort. Now, there is some confusion as to where this passenger jet originated. Originally, we understood that it came from Yemen, but there is also now, we believe, a suggestion that it came from the United Arab Emirates. That is something that we are looking into at the moment, but that news reported by Fox News here in the United States, that two US military jets are escorting a commercial passenger jet to, and I believe we're looking at JFK, one of the largest airports in the world, based in New York. They are escorting that passenger jet now. That is all we know. We don't know whether there was any specific threat by anybody on board, or whether this is information that was received from the ground that elicited such a response. But of course, Stephen, this is a fairly unusual situation, and certainly does fit into the mood of what we've been watching throughout the day, of increased concern and tightened security as regards airliners and cargo planes flying into and towards the United States.
I mean, clearly, Robert, nerves are very much on edge, and indeed, I mean, that can play to the benefit, can't it, of the security services there, if people are generally being more alert over all sorts of packages and issues and people, whether in airports or elsewhere in the United States. But we know clearly that there has been a great deal of intelligence involved in the events of today. What more do we know about the intelligence that the United States has been working with?
Well, we know that there are three continents now where there are investigations into the possibility of a terrorist plot. What we have are two suspicious devices. That one, we believe, was being transported by UPS, a cargo delivery plane that was on board. It was diverted, and the package was taken off the plane and investigated. That at East Midlands Airport. But in Dubai, another suspicious device, certainly package, was found on board a FedEx flight. That too is now being investigated. Both appear to be similar in terms that they are apparently involving a toner from a printer of some kind. A photograph has been released clearly showing white powder on top of this toner cartridge. Now, that seemed to have sparked a wider security concern about all packages that emanated from Yemen. Therefore, flights that were involving packages that came from Yemen were grounded and searched. And specifically, we saw at Newark Airport, one cargo plane was grounded, searched. That was cleared. At Philadelphia, there were two planes. And we saw bomb squads, some dressed in hazmat outfits, getting on board and picking up what they considered to be suspicious devices. But we understand that they have been cleared. So the attention now focusing on these two suspicious packages, both we understand from the FBI, with addresses towards religious groupings in Chicago. And there is now a wider warning to mosques, churches and synagogues in the Chicago area to be on the lookout for any packages that may be deemed suspicious.
We know, Robert, that obviously the President has been kept fully abreast of this situation from the early hours of this morning. He's going to make a statement, a live statement in front of camera, we understand, an hour and 10 minutes from now. Do we have any idea what sort of comments or details he's likely to be bringing forward?
Well, we're getting some kind of information from the US government as to their feelings on this matter, what they think it could be. And they seem to have narrowed it down to three possibilities. That it was an attempt to disrupt, which it certainly has done. Secondly, that it perhaps was a dry run, that they were probing the system for another attack. And thirdly, that they were sending materials onto the third party in the US. Now, from looking at at the picture and from hearing about the certain experiments that have been carried out on these two packages, we now believe that there were no radiological elements or explosives involved in those packages. So it would seem to focus on those two other possibilities, that this was an attempt to disrupt or it was a dry run for a terrorist plot, a terrorist attack. We believe that the US government has drawn up a list of who they think might be responsible, and quotes at the top of that list is Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. You remember a figure called Anwar al-Awlaki. He is based in the Yemen. He was educated in the United States, and he has been tied to situations involving the shooting at Fort Hood, you remember, back in Texas, where 13 people were killed. Also, al-Awlaki is linked to some of the 9/11 conspirators. They, we understand, listened to and were adherents to his sermons online, but that he also had connections to other terrorist plots, including, of course, most recently, the underpants bomber on Christmas Day in 2009. When Abdul Muttalib was investigated and interrogated by US intelligence officials, he apparently told them that al-Awlaki was his al-Qaeda contact. We know he is based in Yemen. So that is what they are looking at now. It's unlikely that the president will go into such detail. He is more likely to say that he's being kept apprised of the situation and that he will urge all Americans to be vigilant.
Robert,
I've just been passed another piece of paper, Stephen.
I imagine, Robert, it's the same piece just been passed to me. The FBI saying that there's no known threat associated with the plane heading into New York to JFK with a package from Yemen. And I guess it is worth reiterating, isn't it, that I mean, it's not unusual for some planes to be escorted in for various reasons by military jets, but also, I guess, highlighting what you were saying a short time ago, that for obvious reasons, I guess, that people are particularly concerned, particularly nervy about what's happening in terms of all sorts of air traffic at the moment.
Well, we certainly saw that earlier on today in cities across the United States, that nerviness you were talking about, Stephen. We saw in Portland, Maine, a courthouse was evacuated. U.S. Marshals trapped inside as a package was investigated outside the courthouse. It turned out that it was a backpack with someone's belongings, but that brought the small town, admittedly, of Portland, Maine, to a standstill. Then we saw on the West Coast in San Francisco a federal agent discovered what he considered to be a suspicious package, and the Battery area of San Francisco was closed down, with people in tall buildings told to stay inside while it was being investigated. Then we saw in New York a delivery van that was parked at a loading bay outside the Chase headquarters in Brooklyn, New York City. That was also investigated, and inside it was a package. It was from the Yemen, but it contained bank receipts. That just shows you how nervy people are. We're hearing a few more details about this escort that's happening mid-air at the moment, Stephen. It appears that, as you say, the FBI says there's no known threat associated with the plane headed to New York, and there's no link, it appears, with the packages from Yemen. And again, we're hearing this phrase, this from Fox News, an abundance of caution is being associated with this escorting. So it may well turn out that this was just a reaction by the organization known as NORAD, which is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which initially we understand this plane was accompanied by Canadian jets, and then US jets took over, and they monitor. It's a binational organization, NORAD, that monitors the US-Canadian border and the airspace that covers both of those countries.
OK, Robert, for now, thank you. Our Home Affairs correspondent Mark White is here in the studio.